Please follow along as I read Psalm 106, verses 7 and 8. Our forefathers in Egypt did not appreciate your wonderful works. They did not remember your abundant loyal love, but they rebelled at the sea, by the Red Sea. But he saved them for the sake of his name, to make his mightiness known. And what was the result? Let's read verse 13. But they quickly forgot what he did. They did not wait for his counsel. How sad. The people did not wait. They were not patient. And that highlights that they did not appreciate Jehovah's patience and loyal love. Love for God should have caused them to think about the consequences of their actions. They should have remembered how Jehovah cared and provided for them. That should have moved them to be patient and wait on Jehovah's direction. But time and again, their actions showed that they really didn't love Jehovah as they should have, and it cost them. They eventually tested Jehovah's patience to the limit, and as a nation, lost his favor. What can you and I learn from their example? Never would we want to become independent of Jehovah, trusting in our own thinking, and not patiently waiting for Jehovah's counsel to direct the decisions we make. Think about how well we've been guided recently regarding the pandemic, natural disasters, and the organizing of our ministry. Even if we didn't fully understand or even fully agree with all the decisions, our love for God helped us to take the time to think about Jehovah's care for us and trust him. By doing so, we learned that if we're patient and submit to Jehovah's direction, we won't go off course and will benefit ourselves and others. And in doing so, we ultimately express our love for Jehovah.
We've just been listening to the opening remarks of William Turner in the November 2022 broadcast. He's supposed to be talking about patience and about the quality of patience and how Jehovah's Witnesses are to cultivate this quality. But it doesn't take long for him to use this opportunity to talk about the need for Jehovah's Witnesses to be obedient.
Never would we want to become independent of Jehovah, trusting in our own thinking, and not patiently waiting for Jehovah's counsel to direct the decisions we make.
So it's not really about patience, is it? It's about being dependent on the organization or not independent of the organization and waiting on Jehovah's direction. This is all about control. This is an organization that wants to be able to micromanage its followers in the most intimate areas of their lives. I just struggle to understand why they need to start the conversation as being about patience, but then take it in all of these weird directions. If you're going to talk about patience and the need for patience and situations in which we might require patience and how difficult it can be, fine, do a talk about that. I started watching this month's broadcast assuming there would be practically nothing to talk about. Patience is something that we all struggle with from time to time. And any number of religions or religious leaders will have something to say on it. But they just have to go there, don't they? They just have to use almost any theme. It could be a theme about the need for compassion or the need for resilience or the need for showing positivity towards others. Almost any subject, apparently, can be twisted into an opportunity for the organization to exert its control. And for me, one of the most chilling parts of William Turner's monologue was when he said this:
Even if we didn't fully understand or even fully agree with all the decisions, Our love for God helped us to take the time to think about Jehovah's care for us and trust Him.
You may not understand a decision, you may not agree with a decision, but you've got to fall in line with it anyway. You've just got to trust that the organization knows better than you. This, for me, was evocative of the advice given in the 2013 November 15th Watchtower on page 20. They just seem to keep echoing this rhetoric throughout their literature and throughout their video propaganda. At that time, the life-saving direction that we receive from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint. All of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not. That's the extent of the control that this organization expects and, in fact, wields when it comes to the millions who follow Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not about whether you understand it. It's not about whether you agree with it. It's not about whether it appears sound from a strategic or human standpoint. It doesn't have to make sense to you. If you're told to do something, you should do it. And as I've said repeatedly, that sort of thinking takes you straight to Jonestown. If you follow it to its fullest extent, what's to stop an organization from telling all of its followers, hey, you need to drink this pill? May not seem like a good idea, may seem a bit crazy, may seem like it doesn't make sense, but you should trust it, shouldn't you? So take the pill. So again, it seems there can be no such thing as just an ordinary, boring JW Broadcasting episode that isn't remotely culty. Apparently that's impossible. Even when they're talking about patience and the need for patience, they need to bring in this rhetoric about control and how much control they expect. And the selling points, if you were paying attention to being a Jehovah's Witness, were look at the advice we gave out during the pandemic, look at how we deal with natural disasters, and thirdly, look at how our ministry is organized. Well, the third one, organizing your ministry, recruiting other people into the group, that's self-serving, isn't it? An organization that's good at recruiting is an organization that's good at pursuing its own agenda, isn't it? The first two, dealing with the pandemic and dealing with natural disasters. So we're supposed to be unable to navigate those problems if we're not Jehovah's Witnesses. That's self-evidently not the case. There were Jehovah's Witnesses who died during the pandemic and continue to die because the pandemic is ongoing, of course. Jehovah's Witnesses died and non-Jehovah's Witnesses died. There was nothing remarkable in the way Jehovah's Witnesses responded to the pandemic. They just did what was expected. They just followed the guidance that they were given by the authorities. That's not a remarkable thing. And it's the same thing with natural disasters. Jehovah's Witnesses say when there's a natural disaster, you should follow the advice that's given to you by the authorities. Well, that's the situation everyone's in. So I don't understand the selling points that William Turner is giving. I'm sure Jehovah's Witnesses will be nodding along and profoundly impressed with these selling points, with these reminders of how amazing their organization is. But when it all boils down to it, when you really just stand back and look at not just the organization, but the rhetoric that's coming out of the organization, and the expectations regarding control, it's not just a man-made organization. It's not just completely unremarkable and void of any evidence of divine inspiration. It's also, when you think about it, a profoundly toxic and harmful organization to be involved in.